Yeah. Ease back, everybody. Sit back, relax, check it out. Today, boom, 9 on the grind TV. Funk from the front seat. Every Saturday, 12 p.m., 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, we got a hot one for you. One of our regular recurring queens is on. Jenn Vanderputten is here. We're going to be dropping some serious knowledge about energy and everything that goes around the universe, how we can try to make this life a little bit better, more pleasant. How you doing, Jenn?
All right, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm feeling it.
I think so. I think everybody we were talking about that, how everybody's just feeling that energy dip.
Yeah.
And another one of your regular guests, Normia, my BFF, and she had a real dip recently and she was feeling it hard too. It's a thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're going to chop more into that. And our producer today, Mr. Mark Lee, coming to you live from the Hayti Center. Today I'm rocking, representing one of the shirts. I did this suicide walk out of the darkness last week. I
Wow.
played for Tony Cam, so I told him I would rock this shirt today for that organization, and we'll touch base on that a little bit too. But first of all, how are you and your family doing? Everybody okay? Everybody doing good?
In general, we're doing all right. My dad had been in the hospital recently. He's getting released soon, gonna get some rehabilitation, but we're all just I've been telling people a lot lately, I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
I
that's
think
real
that
good.
vibes right with the energy that's going on. It's just like sometimes you just have to it's okay to just tread water sometimes. I think that's all right. That's
See,
what you got to do.
this is why I love having you on the show, and we're gonna get Normia back on soon too. I know she's
Yeah.
been busy, but when you guys come on, you always say something at the top of the show that triggers how I want to perceive the next hour and a half I spend with you. And tread water is a very apropos statement considering today we tread water all day because it's pouring rain. So it's very well apropos. I'll tell you a story about this gentleman I met a little bit later, but it's something that I wanted to share with you and with all the people watching. You guys, please stay active on the chat line. You can go back and watch this show to your heart's content. Not on the grind TV. It's on YouTube. So please press that likes button and give us a thumbs up. And like they say, smash the like button because we need that,
Hmm.
as the young folks say.
Hit
But
that subscribe.
yo, right. So for our
Yeah.
audience first meeting you for the first time, just tell us a little bit about your background and how you kind of roll in this universe.
My background, gosh. What a long and storied life. So, growing up, I moved around a lot. Everybody thought I was an army brat, but I wasn't. It just my dad had to go where the work was. He was of that generation where high school degree was okay, but like halfway through their careers, it wasn't enough anymore, and so he had to just go where the jobs were. And I always enjoyed math and sciences, so I ended up getting a degree in math and computer science. I've been a software engineer
Whoa.
I'm also some of us sometimes have a second career as we get older. Mine is I'm working on writing and science fiction and fantasy, so that's going, my goals to be to publish at least one novel. Um, and some years ago, I stopped working full time. I do part time now on my own business, freelancing. Mostly because my youngest son, who's autistic and has ADHD and anxiety, a whole umbrella of things. He just needed more support, and I decided to just hang out my own shingle. Between my husband and I'm the one that's more like self-organizing and, self-motivated. So I was the better person to, I didn't want to because I didn't want to have that gap in the resume because it really hurts you. So I was like, I'll just do some part-time work. And that business has actually been growing. So I stuck with it. Here I am 7 years later and I keep building it. So
Well,
yeah.
congratulations. Because number one, first of all, you're a beautiful queen out here in the world that's set up against women, which sucks, and I'm not one of them. So kudos for you for pushing
Thank you.
through and kicking through all of that bullshit. Because I know you had to deal with a lot more than I ever probably would
Hmm.
have had to deal with as a man. So first of all, congratulations for that. Second of all, congrats for you being the primary go-getter, caregiver for certain things in your family dynamic. And, that takes a lot of energy, and you'll always have our prayers and thoughts, and you'll always have our strength here on the show, because we definitely dig that when it comes to, your humanitarian and your kindness, because I've experienced that firsthand. So I know how you are. And that's really, really cool. And the fact that you can take time to still come on, hang out with me for an hour and a half on a dreary Saturday, that speaks volumes. So I am honored. Trust me when I tell you, I am honored, man.
I always feel honored when you ask me on the show. It's so awesome. My kids, like my youngest, you remember you met my youngest, and he thought you were just the coolest person in LA. He's like, Mom, you have the coolest friends.
I appreciate that.
And I told him it was going to be, both my sons are like, oh, you're going to be on like a YouTube thing? That's so cool, Mom. I just think it's, you help me score a lot of points with my boys.
Hey, well, it's all good though, because, at least as they grow into the fine young gentlemen that they are going to grow into, because I've met one of your sons, it's like, putting out information for them to always have would be like our parents giving us photographs in those big bulky photo books that we kept for life, that we still have. I still have them. Right? So that's this. That's the version of this. It's the same thing. It's just that now, years from there, they can go look back and see that Mom was putting bricks in the love of society, and that's what's happening. For everybody that's unaware, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And please, I personally lost my sister and my niece, and she had a double mastectomy. So, but I know people that have gone through this. So please be aware out there. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And, I'm sure people will be calling you and, try to pick and choose how you might want to support something like that, including bands, because I'm so not really angry, but sometimes I just think bands here in this area need to do more when it comes to benefits, but that's a whole nother show. So it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Also be aware that we are in this conflict in the Middle East. So if you have anybody that's dealing with that on any way, shape, fashion, or form, know that we love you here. And if you have a birthday, anniversary, or transition, please know that, we're here for you. And we're hanging out with Jenn Vanderputten today. I pulled up something that I had to get into with you. And it's the 5,125 year cycle, the Mayan calendar. And it rebooted itself in 2012. Okay, so here we are 11 years from it now. And we were just talking off air about the energy and the changes and the things we all are feeling and experiencing now are so different. And I just wanted to chat with you about it. What do you think the last generation, which is basically people that are 30 and under, they came in at the tail end of that 5,125, and they also were born into the beginning of this new era. And this is why I figured something out after talking to several really smart people, including yourself. The communication gap between me and my kids is wider than it has ever been. Like the communication gap between me and my daughter and me and my father wasn't that grand because there wasn't that much going on. So he understood me, I understood him when I was in my teens. And then in the 70s and 80s, it got wider and wider. Like now, these young people, what do they call Gen Z? They have their own language. They're all born with a cell phone in their hand, right? So how do you see this change coming about this planet? What do you see? What are you feeling?
So maybe I'm the odd one out, but as my boys have grown up and they're Gen Z, I've gotten closer and closer to them.
That's awesome.
Part of what I did, it's funny because when I'm online, like Twitter and stuff, people think I'm like millennial or they think I'm young, right? But I've always been a young at heart person. And yet And yet people thought I was an old soul too, because I was always like, I was the kid, the old ladies who had all the fine antiques and everything just so in their house. I was the only kid they'd let in their house because I would respect all that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, don't touch that. I wouldn't touch it. I'd respect, like, I wasn't afraid of them. I was just like, that's important to her, that stays nice. I'm not going
Yeah.
to hurt her feelings. And so, I have this weird mixture. I've always been a weird mixture, arts and sciences, both. I'm
Yes.
strong on both. I've always been this weird, um, duality of things. When I was going through the stuff with my youngest son, where he was having difficulty at the previous school before we got to the better school, one of the things that the psychiatrist helped me understand was how to do a better job of understanding him. And, it's different than understanding another adult, because adults, most of us, have the ability to communicate what we're feeling. Eventually, it may take us, some people are more, eloquent and can describe it more quickly.
Hmm.
Others need more time to describe how they're feeling, what they're going through. But you'll get there, and you don't have to put any effort on your side. You just have to listen. Whereas children are still learning how to communicate. They're still learning how to identify their emotions. And autistic kids can sometimes have even more trouble identifying and articulating their emotions. So I had to learn how to go the extra mile to bridge the gap and understand. And one of the things I learned was your initial reaction, always be skeptical about your own initial reaction to what somebody's saying. So wait a minute, why are they saying that exactly? Is it what I think, or is it? So you ask more questions, and you do, um, that question and answer, like the ancient Greeks used to, right? The Socratic method. Is you're trying to understand. And I think there was back in, I think, the 80s or 90s, there was a popular thing called the Franklin Covey, and he said, seek first to understand and then be understood. And that's something that stuck with me a long time
That's
too.
deep.
But it really came to a head when I had a child who didn't want to live anymore. And at that point, I had to find out what was going on in his head in order to help him get past that and feel hope for his life again. And I'm still seeing is generationally, Gen Z doesn't feel that there's a future for this planet. And I think
Right.
that's why they've checked out.
Yes. Yes.
And I think we have to, again, I think, like, we really have to seek first to understand and then be understood, because when you've listened to them, they will turn and give you their attention once they feel understood. They need to feel heard and understood. And it can be hard because Gen Z is also like, what's the point? So it can be hard to get them to have that conversation. But I think you find if you just start with, well, just let them talk about the things that they actually are interested in, even if it's video games or whatever, enter their world and understand their world. And then you can move the conversation towards how they feel about the future. And with my sons, they are actually excited about their future, but it wasn't immediate. They were, and there's still that generational feeling in them. I can see, especially my older one who's 20. He's like, well, he's going through the steps, and he's excited about finding where he would fit in the world, what he could do for a career and for his life. And I've encouraged him to be very frugal on that, right? So find something that will pay you well, give you the benefits, but also make sure it's something that you can get up and do every day so you're not miserable, right? So both my kids, I very much, I have no problem with them staying at home. I'm not one of these people like, you got to get out of the house like at a certain age and everything. That's just not the reality today. It's
Nah.
tough out there.
It's not.
And honestly, it's as a family, the extended family is the actually more old-fashioned kind of family, where the kids would
Yes.
live with you until they got married and went off
Tribal.
on their own.
And it's
Is Yeah,
tribal. We're supposed
it's
to be that.
natural. It's very natural. It's like, let them get their feet under them, let them get established to where
Amen.
they go out there and they're not like feeling like they're on the edge of the precipice, financially and emotionally too, because whatever time you need, everybody's got a different path. If you need a little longer for that maturation process, so what? No judgment about that. That's okay. So,
Yeah.
some biscuits take a little longer in the oven.
I just wanted to add something. We're hanging out today with Jenn Vanderputten, and you can see why she's on our show as a regular. This woman is brilliant, man. What's up, George Funkovici? Everybody out there in the chat
Hey,
line, when
George.
y'all tune in. Love you guys. Appreciate it. I just wanted to touch base on something you said. The worst thing I ever did as a parent, I couldn't put myself in my daughter's shoes. I couldn't figure out how to do it. And to this day, I regret that. I just couldn't. And see, it was such a generate with me. I couldn't, because I was born like in the 50s.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? And then I came up in the 60s. We had 3 TV channels. We had the TV signed off at 12 at night. You had to stand up by the bed and do Pledge of Allegiance, anthem, and all this other shit, right? And then you go to school, you come home and play, and you go home and go to bed. That was it. That was your life. So
Yeah.
I could not. And I'm urging every parent, if you're out there listening, please try to put yourself in your kid's shoes. And now that I've figured it out, I'm able to do so. But I couldn't make that leap. And another thing that you mentioned about understanding and letting them ease into it. I think old school parents, it was shoved down our throat. We didn't get no lean in or choices. It was like, this is this. It's like dinner. If you ain't eating dinner, boom. Now you tell your kids they don't want to eat dinner, they go order something. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that. And yeah, right? Think about it. So it was like, hey, if you ain't eating, don't want these greens, don't eat them. You ain't eating tonight, So
I always tell my kid, I cook. I cook. So,
yeah, I know you're a good cook.
Yeah, I cook. And my boys, like, I'm teaching them as much as I can. That the Gen Z does have this, like, my oldest is like the classic Gen Z, like afraid of the knives, afraid of the heat of the stove and everything. Like, whereas my youngest, now he's Gen Z too, he's 16. And he's at least once a week cooking dinner for at least himself and his brother. And so my husband and I, it's like he's really into the cooking more. Like he enjoys it, like with me. But I've always told them, if you don't like what's on here, you always have to have either fruits or veggies at every meal, something like either fruit or veggie at every meal. I said, anything in the fridge is game. You can make yourself something, but here's what you have to have. Get yourself some protein, get yourself some fruits or veggies, and that's just sort of like stick with that and you'll be good. And so when we have dinner, eventually, like, you always make them take one bite when they're real little, when it's hard, because they're all like when they're young, they're all just like, I don't like it or I do like it. That's it. Yeah. They're simple. But if you say one bite, okay, and then you're done. And then as they get a little older, you got to have 3 bites and then you're done. And there's actual studies that show the 100th time you've done that, they're fine with it. They'll eat the whole thing. You just have to so don't like try to go from 0 to 100 right away. Just take those steps in between. Now my kids, honestly, I can call them down. I can set a plate in front of them and they'll eat it.
That's cool.
They're fine. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, leftovers are always fair game. If you don't like what's here, then feel free to warm up yourself some leftovers, make yourself a meal as long as it's balanced. And then whatever's left over from this meal becomes another set of leftovers, whatever, but I just taught, them to try to be like frugal, like don't waste. Right. And my boys actually, they really like the home cooking and, so they don't do much in the way of that.
That's good.
Food.
See, because I met your son, right? And I could tell by just hugging him, his energy, his field around him. You're giving them this thing that not a lot of parents today are doing, because you're allowing them to breathe in that technology. But then as your environment that you have them in gives them a sense of old responsibility of the trial thing. And that's what I want to allude to, because we are losing out a whole generation of people because we've simply cut ties and can't. Like, I'm fortunate. I'm in the music game. So I get a chance to understand, hear, talk to, vibe with. I get it. I'm fortunate. Like you, I have my own. Oh, thank you, Mark. Way to go. We got your logo up at the top there. See, this is why Mark's a good producer.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Now I got to buy him lunch. He actually did some work today.
And George, I love what you said, because, and I think this goes back to what you say in the tribe. And we used to live closer to relatives. So you'd have aunties and uncles and cousins and grandparents. And you could run down to grandma's house. And you know what? Honestly, that's a great thing because sometimes the kid needs to get away from parents and siblings and just have that time with somebody else. I used to, like, when I was growing up, it was not uncommon if a kid really liked you, they'd adopt you as their grandma or as their auntie or uncle, if they just really loved you. And the adults were always like, oh, yeah, I had like three grannies. I had a Grandma Marie, because she just loved me to death, and I was like, "Can I call you Grandma Marie?" And she's like, "Of course you can, darling." And I might as well have been, born of her own children because and so as we get more disconnected, we're working longer hours, we're more exhausted. We're not making those connections either with kids. It doesn't even have to be your kid. It's just like in the neighborhood, you have a good relationship. Of course, you always should have a good relationship with the parents so that there's trust, but, and so that too, what those parents, their likes and dislikes and what their general vision or ethics and things like that are for their kids, and respect that. But other than that, the kids in my neighborhood, I'm like, come on down and see the chickens whenever we got chickens, they can come and see the chickens and they like to come over and see Jim's chickens.
When we think about like the comment that George just made, where he said if he didn't want, particularly that night what his mom was making, he could run down the street to grandma's. That's so dope because that's the reality of how we used to be. Didn't matter where you were. Yeah. You could kind of do that because it was a tribal thing. This is why I'm constantly trying to like I guess encourage younger people that I talk to get more out of their cell phone and more into people, because I think we're missing that. I see a lot of people when I'm driving, I'm working Uber or doing music, whatever. I've seen people at concerts, like at the concert, taking a thing of the concert, and you like right there, and I'm like, why did you go? If you didn't want to see the live human being, the only way you can accept that experience is through a two-dimensional thing. So society, listen up. They're dumbing you down. They don't need to put you in the mindset to where you can physically see the live person standing there, but you can't accept what they're doing until it loops back at you in real time on the screen. See, this is a disconnect. Yep. This is why I wanted to get deep with you today, because we're down that rabbit hole. When you see concert goers, and other than your veterans who are hanging out, me and my lady, we veterans, love you, boo. But when you see all these people, they got their cell phone out and they just want to record the moment. But I'm like, you at the moment, you are part of the moment.
Yes.
Be in the moment. You don't have to replay it back to get a feeling, because now you've missed the moment.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. What are your thoughts on that?
So yes, absolutely. But as the adults, I think we have to find a different way than we used, because the environment, I grew up half and half, right? The technology started to emerge. So I'm Gen X, and technology started to emerge in the middle of my lifetime while I was still young, and it was easy for me to adapt to, but I still had that solid footing under me from having, a childhood that was free of those distractions or those balls and chains, and because it can become a ball and chain on you if you let it. And my kids, they fall into that category, yes, but as they're getting older, they're maturing into a better view of this. Like, healthy to have some of it in your life, also need to have some of that, getting out. And yeah, me too, George, me too. I used to have the whole thing in my head, and now, it's part of that could be age for me, though. But I think, at the same time, I don't want to fight too hard, because a kid can feel like you don't understand like their world and their life and their reality. So I think, it's Mia, Normia's on. What I did is I didn't want to condemn it or make them feel guilty, because I didn't want to give them an unhealthy relationship with this whole thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, what do I have to do? And I came to the realization as they are getting older that I have to just come with them instead of saying go outside and play, and stop doing that thing. I need to go out with them. I need to take them hand in hand and show them. So in fact, yesterday my youngest was off of school. they had like a teacher work day or something like that. And I said, you want to go have a picnic over at Duke Gardens? And Normia came with us as well. Because I called her up. I'm like, you want to come with us? And it was like, she said at the end of that, she goes, oh my gosh, I needed this. We were all forest bathing, and just we felt rejuvenated, absolutely rejuvenated by being out there, having our little picnic, walking around the gardens together. And my youngest son is like, on the way there, he's like, yeah, this is the time to just leave the cell phone in the car and go
Good
and
for him.
enjoy nature. He's 16, so it's, I didn't have this attitude in him when he was 10, um, but I do now. So again, a lot of these things, you just have to take your time and just don't be judgmental. Don't sound like, don't be domineering about it. I think one of the things as humanity matures, right? Because humanity goes through its own infancy through maturity, as we, wake up more to who we are in the higher level, the higher self, rather than that more base self that is still there. It helps us survive, right? And it makes us human too. But as we realize more of the higher self, I think we're realizing more that it's really not working as parents to be totalitarian. We have to understand our children and help them develop a healthier way of having relationships.
Well said. And see, I know people that are personally doing that. Sometimes from the outside, when your kids aren't right with you, and I'm divorced, you see it differently. But then when you actually sit down and analyze it, they are doing some things that are necessary just to maintain and pull them along without pushing. See, our parents used to push us. That's all we knew. We didn't know. It wasn't no like, hey, you cut pulling. They was pulling you, pushing you, prodding you. Like, hey, boom. That's it. It was cut and dry. You only had
Yeah.
about like 5 things to remember. And if you screwed those up, that's when you got in trouble. Nowadays, kids got like 105 things to do and
They
remember.
do.
So, yeah. And see, this is why I've come around now and I understand better. I could actually be a better parent. I know I talk to a lot of parents and we all kind of, especially men, we all kind of have the different mindset of how we have to kind of do certain things differently when it comes to our youth. Because I'm telling everybody out there, listen, if we do not get a good grip on the mental health of our youth, then this country's
Yes.
lost because they're the ones that's going to be running the country. So we have to make
Mm-hmm.
sure we take care of them, and then they in turn will feed the earth what it needs. Real quick, before we get into our next subject, today, our audience, thank you for tuning in. Stay active on the chat line. What's up, James Jones? I know you got me every Saturday. George DeFunkovici and everybody out there watching, Sonia Murphy, and of course, Normia Vasquez Scales. Check me out. Hit me back. I'm still looking for that spot. So, text me back. But anyway, I'm hanging out with Jenn Vanderputten today. And we're getting ready to jump knee deep into the Mayan 5,125 cycle calendar, because I want to get on that on the other side. But don't forget, P-Funk Radio, we love you. Thank you so much, Keith Jackson. Thank you, JTRP, for cutting it up. Thank you, Philly Phil, get on the Funk Bus. I love you for that. And also Gabe Gonzalez, DJ Godzilla, Disco Kid on Wednesdays, Larry Funkster Jones on Saturdays, and Robin Circle of P on Sundays. Tony Cameron, the Funk All-Stars, Oak City Music Collective, Afterglow, 92416, Q&A Entertainment, Brooke Clagett. It was so good to see you at the ball. Patricia Diori, Aquarius, Rising Art, Curtis Wookhouse, and George DeFunkovici, who do all this beautiful artwork back here. George, I'm giving you a show plug every Thursday night. Full Funk Vibe, 9 on the Grind TV. George DeFunkovici, so y'all check that out. DJ Coccolino in Italy, thank you. Elizabeth in Ireland, thank you. David Webb, thank you. The Funk Chronicles, and he is on 9 on the Grind as well on Sundays. Playing his radio show at 3 p.m. So we're trying to expand these things here. And also, we got a few little shorts that some people that we know and love very much have actually jumped in and said some of this.
Hey, this is Jenn Vanderputten, writer of Code and Prose. You are watching Funk from the Front Seat with Zach Roberson. Tune in every Saturday at noon for excellent and important conversation.
Hey fam, what's goody good? What's really good? My name is Jeff Robertson from the gospel group called Jeff Robertson and New Life. And I'm coming to you from the town that we had to name it twice. It's so nice. New York, New York. And I'm bringing you some news about my brother from another mother, Brother Zach, who's bringing you his hot new show called Funk from the Front Seat. Listen, he's bringing you funk from the vault, from the past, from the present, and into the future. He's got that music that makes the hair on the back of your neck rise up. He's bringing you funk all the way down to your toes. This is that funk that makes you really want to groove. Stay tuned. Don't touch that dial as he brings you funk from the front seat. Listen, let's go.
My brother New York, yo, he just dropped a serious gospel spiritual CD, dropped it in Times Square, the whole nine. So Jeff, congratulations on that. He got a brand new show that comes on Saturdays too as well up in New York City, on TV. So man, I'm proud of you, bro. You keep rocking that.
Hey,
man.
It's Chrissy Key Rollins here with Holistic Restoration, inviting you to check out Zach Robinson with Funk in the Front Seat. He drops new episodes every Saturday at noon on the East Coast time, and replays are posted for whenever you miss a live stream. You can find him on 9 on the Grind TV and also on YouTube, and get ready for the funk because he brings it every week along with hot topics, amazing guests, and great conversations. Again, that's Zach Robinson with Funk from the Front Seat on 9 on the Grind TV and YouTube. Go check him out.
Hey, this is Keith Jackson with P-Funk Radio, inviting you to check out my brother Zach Robinson with Funk from the Front Seat. Saturdays, 12 noon on the East Coast and 9 a.m. on the West Coast. It all happens on 9 on the Grind TV and also on YouTube. Great guest, great conversation each and every Saturday. That's Funk from the Front Seat with Zach Robinson on 9 on the Grind TV and YouTube. Check him out.
Wiggle worm here, baby. Yeah, and I'd just like to say congratulations to my man Zach. Yeah, Club Funketeer number 9, keeping that funk on the shine for his 2nd year anniversary of his show, Funk from the Front Seat. It don't get no better unless you jump in the back seat and then jump back in the front seat on the one. Yeah, keep that funk alive.
Because you get Bootsy. I pull out Bootsy only for special people. So you're special on that. You high up. All right.
Awesome.
You're Bootsy Queen. So you get Bootsy. We're hanging out on the other side. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying tuned in. Jenn Vanderputten. Happy birthday or happy anniversary to you. And if you lost somebody, God bless you. Transitions, we know how they can be. We experience them all differently. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I know this has touched at least everybody in the audience somehow, some way. So let's keep that in mind. Some of the things that you just said before we jump ahead, man, about seeking first to be understood rather than try to,
seek first to understand and then be understood.
Yeah, yeah, that hit home with me, and I'm gonna take that one with me today and try to utilize that out in the world. But here's one thing I wanted to run by you. And you said some beautiful things so eloquently earlier, but Mother Earth is not an app where the energy is going to move like we want it to move. So we're all dealing with this stuck in the mud syndrome, I call it. We all feel like we're not moving quick enough. Things can't move fast enough. Things we want to happen are not happening. What would you say to our audience to try to navigate some of that?
I think we said at the beginning, right? Sometimes treading water is okay. And if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. And I think sometimes we have to forgive ourselves when we're not making headway and give ourselves the grace to wait until the time is right for us to make that headway. You need to find the ground under you. You need to get to shore first. So tread water, get to shore. And then you can get up and you can walk and you can run. So give yourself that grace. I think there's a tendency, and and I've seen it a lot, it's starting with the millennials, is, they seem to think that their life has to be like, there was a long time, let me back up here. I'm going to try to say this correctly. I saw like on Twitter and social media, like I would listen because I wanted to understand, and they're very vocal. They'll broadcast, they'll say what they're feeling. And, some people put off of that, but I use it as like, this is an opportunity because they're willing to give me what's in their mind and I want to understand them. So there was this feeling if you didn't have like your apex of your career by the time you were 30, it was hopeless for you. I'm like, there's some people who are realizing the apex of their lives of what they were put on this earth for when they're 70 or 80. Look at Grandma
Yes.
Moses and her art, which is now like, widely revered. And she started that after her kids were all grown up and, grandkids. And she was like, she was what, in her 60s or 70s when she started. She was
up there.
She was up there, right? I struggle with that too with my writing because I'm like, oh, I should have started this when I was young. I'm too old to do this. But that's a socialization, and I think there's some of that capitalism, and that I think that's an illness in our society that we only value, these things in youth. When at every stage in your life, if there's something you want to do it and give yourself the grace to let it happen when it's supposed to. Just keep going however you can, but don't feel that you have to, have a milestone that, oh, I should have had this done by here. Now I'm a failure. Nope. It's just going to take a little longer. Keep going.
Amen. I'm glad you said that. Nomia says Schumann's Renaissance is paramount, especially in our current state of affairs. Yes, it is. Thank you, Nomia, for that. What you said is so important because me personally, when I'm looking at things or dealing with situations, people, whatever, I realized years ago I can't be capping myself. I can't be just saying I'm at the mountaintop, then that's it. I got to keep pushing because there is no end to it. It's all in the beginning. It's all the same thing. So when you climb it, if you get to the top of one, you can still stand there and see something else. So just keep going up. That would be the best advice I can give you. There is no end. And shout out to Brenda in Ohio. I didn't forget my shout outs today, but I'm in the midst of moving, so everything is disarray. You didn't really hear a lot of music coming through today, this and that. But I'm in the process of that. So Brenda, I love you. I hope you feel better. And I'll shout out everybody at the end of the show. But I know you're watching, Brenda. I just got to keep moving forward and try not to get stagnant and try not to get caught up in the malaise of, we're stuck in the mud. Because I tell you,
forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Don't. And start by forgiving yourself, and then realizing that you didn't do anything wrong. That you have to forgive yourself just because you weren't making headway for a period of time.
Yeah,
that's life. You're going to encounter those periods, and as long as you keep your mind on your ultimate goal, and whenever you can work on something, go ahead and work on it. But it's not a what did they say, a marathon, not a race. It's the endurance is more important than the sprint. It's marathon, not a sprint. Thank you. The endurance is more important, so cultivate that within yourself.
That's elevating living truth, Jennifer. Call to action unapologetically. Thank you, Nomia, for throwing that in there. Yes, and I was talking to this gentleman. He was kind of like my own personal Sagaru. For those of you that don't know, you should check out what Sagaru says, because he actually is a very deep spiritual human being on this plane right here. And again, you pick out and choose what you want here and there, and then you use it for your own roadmap. But he was saying, we're all still suffering from the PTSD, and he said most professionals, which he is in this country, he's a professional, believe it's going to take 5 to 10 years for us to get back to what's the new norm. So if we're feeling like we're stuck in this mud, it's two things parallel with the universe. Number one, we are in the age of the new. We're like infants again. So like infants, they have to move their fingers before they move their arms. They move their arms before they move their legs.
Mm-hmm.
They have to crawl before they can walk. They have to walk before they can run. And then they have to run before they can sprint, right? So that's why we're all feeling stuck. We're like in the rebirth of this new era. And if you don't believe me, you guys can look it up for yourselves. 2012, the Mayan calendar predicted where we would be. And here's the perfect example, Jen. Look at how cell phones went from beepers from 2010 all the way to you can shoot a motion picture now.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the corporate evil of it. And then I'll let you comment. 1908, thereabout, the automobile engine was made and built to run off gasoline. So if we did cell phone technology from beepers to cell phones in a short period of 11 years, right, where you could be on the moon and I can still talk to you, but we're still running gasoline fuel for like over 100 years, that's corporate evil and greed. I'll let you comment.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that to it. I think there's a lot of short-term thinking, and it goes back to what you're saying. If we're in an infancy of a cycle, of an era, then we're thinking like children think. It's like, oh, this is a cool new thing. Let's just do it. Let's just do it and stick with what's familiar instead of trying something new. And also instead of like when you're more mature, you sit back and let's think of all the possible repercussions and let's be smarter about this. Let's do this in a more responsible way so that we don't have the negative consequences and only the positive consequences. And that takes maturity and patience. And so I think we're definitely in a time of impatience, grasping or running with new technology before thoroughly discussing everything that it means. And then there's the other part of, like you said, was the corporate greed is those who are on top want to stay on top, right? And so that means keeping things going the way they are because they're the masters of that mode, right? So, for a while, the millennials were talking about disruption, right? Disrupting this industry, disrupting that industry. But a lot of times it was just for the sake of being the disruptor rather than disrupting with purpose. I think it started as just disrupting with purpose, with a better purpose. And then it became, this is how you, become the big hit or the big thing in the moment. And that, that thinking led to problems in being disruptors. I think we have to think about being disruptors with forethought, with purpose, with intent. So disrupting the oil and gas industry, but doing it with the purpose and intent for something that will make a better tomorrow. So when we're talking about, making things more energy, when we're talking about energy alternatives, it's one thing to say we're going to save the planet energy alternatives. It's another thing to say how we're going to make sure that every person can adopt this. Because right now it's too expensive. The average everyday person just can't do it.
Nope.
So it's got to be adopted or the change doesn't happen. It's got to be reachable for all. So I think we have to keep fighting for these kind of things for whenever we think in terms of we've solved the problem. We've done it neatly and tidily, but we haven't talked about how attainable, that's the word I'm looking at, it is for enough, people that it makes a permanent and lasting change. So the sustainability of a change has to be built into the solution. So
that's right. And thank you for saying it like that because again, it's not going to happen overnight, right? This is what we have to come to the realization of. Like you said, in this infancy stage that we're in again, now it's all about technology. So like George said, pretty much, and we talk about this all the time amongst ourselves, our brain basically is a giant computer chip. So we're actually reawakening parts of it, using parts of it, linking up with the spiritual side of esocentric thinking and understanding that the pyramids, what the Mayan calendar says, what the Maharata says in India, what we're looking at now with these wars that we seemingly have to just be a part of, because as Chrissy Key Rollins says, this is the planet where chaos happens. We chose some of these events to come through and learn again, relive them again. All of this now is coming to a head. It's almost like that volcano that has all of this stuff, and there's millions more. Everybody got their own thing. You know what I'm saying? And we're all trying to be part of a greater thing and still do our thing. And so everybody out there that's watching, if you're feeling some type of way, I wanted to specifically do this show with Jenn to talk about this, because you're not alone. Just know that. It's here, it's real, it's not alone. And the earth is not an app. So we can't program it to do what we want it to do. It's billions of years old, you know. And
we have to, like Mia is always saying on her recalibrating the scales, we have to recalibrate because we have to get back into that symbiosis with our environment. We have to think in terms of symbiosis. It's the mutually beneficial relationships that we've had in the past when we were more tribal peoples. I mean, because across the world, you go back, however many years you have to go back, you find, I think there was knowledge that we lost along the way in the Industrial Revolution and modernization. You know, and there's still indigenous peoples who have this, and they want us to understand, because they know, because they're still practicing it, what that important relationship and those secrets are to you know, living in harmony and thriving. Sadhguru has talked about how there's, you know, microorganisms in the earth that help the plants to extract the nutrients and put it into the plants that we eat. And a lot of what we've been doing has been destroying those microorganisms because we weren't even aware they were there for a long time, or we weren't aware of what we were doing and how that was affecting them. And like in the past 100 years, I think he was saying something like 70-80% of the nutritional value in our vegetables and our plants that we grow, it has decreased 70-80% of the nutritional value. So the same carrot, like carrot now and a carrot 100 years ago, are very different. And it's because of microorganisms in the earth, not because of the minerals or anything, you know, not being in the earth, but because of that symbiotic relationship between, because it's, you know, the whole network of how our environments work, and every single thing from the insects to microorganisms to us and animals and plants. And even you mentioned volcanoes and things like that. And because the earth breathes from within, and then it respirates back through the depth of the earth. And that's important too. So we have to allow these things to happen, and we have to support and nurture them, because humans are natural gardeners. We're just talking about that yesterday at the picnic. Humans are natural gardeners. We love to tend the earth. It's there. If you don't think you have a green thumb, think again. It's just because you probably just haven't had someone take you by the hand and teach you and learn. That's how, you know, that we'd pass that from generation to generation.
Because we're the same energy as the earth.
Yeah. We're part of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. We're hanging out today with Jenn Vanderputten, and we're getting deep, and we're going to get even deeper. The earth is billions of years old. The energy on it is billions of years old. And just because we want things to speed up, it's not going to happen, because we're dealing with our energy, and we're dealing with the energy of the past, present, and future, because we are all as one. And I know if you guys think that I'm nuts, I'm really not. I've been studying this stuff. I am 65, going on 66. And this is basically what I study. I would have a thesis in it by now, I'm sure, of all the books I read and all the things that I'm just dropping knowledge to you guys about, because I feel it's important, because I know that this darkness is there. And everybody around me that I deal with that's a light worker like Jenn knows that this darkness is there. You know, so just be aware of that. Life navigating. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. And I was like just thinking, you know, on the remembering back when COVID and lockdown, And for people who could be at home, we really do as a group need to push back against the corporations who want us to return to the offices. And I know there's it's a complex network, like the people who own the restaurants and the businesses that we used to shop at when we were there at the office all the time. I feel for that. I understand that. But we saw how much Mother Nature bounced back when there was a lot less driving happening with the fossil fuels. So until we can replace every car with a non-pollutant burning thing, then everybody who is able to stay at home. And so there's a lot of people who can't, and that's fine. They're the ones who need to be out there. But people like me, I can do everything from home. And we really need to push back as a group collectively against the corporations and say, no, this is for our future, because even the scientists were amazed at how quickly Mother Nature could bounce back if she just had a chance. She only just needs a chance. And it's easier than we thought to give her that chance. So instead of feeling like it's hopeless, start thinking how hopeful we can be with a small change.
Yeah.
But across each of us multiplied across billions of people, that small change can become bigger. A huge change. And that's one of the simple, small ways. Like if we can just get, that is our culture of, if you can work from home, if you're able to, you personally, your job, all the things come together, then we got to push for, that becoming the way we do it. And we can do it smartly. We can relearn how to do work, that way. And push for getting rid of homework in schools. They don't need it. My son's not had homework since he went to the new school, and he is excelling, absolutely excelling.
I agree, because I think, first of all, and you said that's so awesome. So if you're out there, man, give Jen a hand, because we know what she's talking about, because that's why we're doing this show. Normia and George and James Jones and everybody else there watching. Mark, I got a quick question. Is this supposed to be Vanderputten.com or Vanderputten.co?
No, it's .co.
See, okay, Thank you, Mark. See, because I was yelling at him in the private chat. Think that.
Poor Mark. You did right.
I didn't know. Yeah, so thank you, Mark. Good job. Now I owe you 2 lunches, but don't hold your breath. But after talking to this gentleman, and then I was watching the Danica Patrick podcast, and I'm trying to get her on. For y'all that don't know, the race car driver, Danica Patrick, has the dopest podcast ever. Oh, yeah. I swear to God. She has Billy Carson's on there, Dr. Stephen Greer's on there. I mean, this woman gets deep, and I'm plugging for her. Now, she's who she is, but I guarantee you, I'm going to get her on the show. I guarantee you, I swear to God I am.
Cool.
But I was listening, and she was talking about the forces in our life, energy combined, that with Mother Nature, and that we're going to win, but we have to embrace it. We have to, and exactly, it's just what you just said about, embracing it and dealing with the pain of not getting something done, or the pain of this or that. That creates a lot of times out of our own unnecessary pain. We don't have to do that. Like if something bad, and I struggle with this all the time. This is why I see a therapist, because I'm always thinking about, damn, is this personally happening to me? Do I have to continue in that pain? So it's a way that you have to block that, use that energy and block it, and then just understand everything has a positive framework to learn from. And then those feelings inside of anxiety, of depression, of wanting to leave the planet, of just feeling failure, having your self-esteem feel a certain way because you feel like you can't move. It's all part of this cycle. That's why I'm doing this show. I just want you guys to know this is all part of it. And I know you guys had to hear this today because, I needed to hear it. My audience needs to hear what I think, and my guest as well. And again, this is just our opinions, not Facebook, not StreamYard, and nothing else. What do you think about that, Jen, when it comes to trying to navigate what we're feeling now and understand some of these feelings? We don't have to feel them if we don't want to.
Yeah. I think I heard somebody say before that's empathy versus compassion. In empathy, you feel the feelings of the person, and compassion, you understand their feelings, but you don't internalize their emotions as your own. So I think we have to balance. Sometimes we do need that empathy because we do need to feel that person strong enough that we have to internalize it to care. We have to put ourselves in their shoes to really understand what they're going through. So sometimes the journey might start with that empathy, so you understand where you're coming from, and then you back off to compassion, where you're no longer bearing the weight of that person's situation, but you're still there to help or just support. Sometimes helping someone is just being in the moment with them and not trying to solve the problem. Again, that goes back to understanding, letting that person be heard and understood. That's the biggest thing with my youngest son. And I still don't get it right all the time. We are always learning and growing. So don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up on things. These little mistakes you make all the time. Learn and grow. They are opportunities. And, step into someone's shoes as long as it takes to understand, and then step back into your shoes. And whatever you have to give in that moment, even if it's just being in the moment, and then walking away and having your, the rest of your day and your own life, okay, that's fine. Each situation is different, but if you're internalizing too much, then it's the weight of the world you're putting on your shoulders, and you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that to be a good person.
That's right. See, and that right there comes down to the whole love thing. And when you write this book, I know it's going to be a bestseller. I'm definitely going to have a line in it. I'm going to force my way in because that's what I do. I'm a good, there's a word in New York that I can't really use on air, but I'm good at it. You know what I'm saying? It's good. In a nice way, it's called a nudge. I can nudge my way into stuff all the time, and it's a good nudge because then when I bring stuff to the table, people are like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. You're not wasting my time. But I can't wait for you to once you decide you're gonna drop this book on everybody, because I know it's gonna be because you have so much valuable insight and wisdom to things, everyday things that we need to talk about. This is an everyday organic show. It's for the guy that just wants to sit in his living room and chill out and watch. Mm-hmm. It's for the young lady that may be driving in her car, or it's for my funketeers that listen to funk music or this or that, and I'm so excited to always have my guests on, man. You guys are amazing. And you constantly keep me up, so it's a win-win, What do you think about a lot of our young people constantly continuing to be cyberbullied?
Oh, this is where we as the adults, we are absolutely failing them. There should be laws by now, and we should all be hounding our representatives for, zero tolerance on using imagery or any kind of information about a minor, even if the other person is a minor online. And, the laws don't necessarily have to be punitive, but they have to recognize that this is a victimization and that something must be done. Even that if that is to step in and intervene and make sure that individual who's bullying gets the therapy they need to stop doing that, because that's probably coming from trauma in themselves. I believe in having more laws that say we're going to step in and make sure you get the help you need. Medicare for all and all that kind of stuff. I'm for it. I'm for make sure everybody can have a therapist if they need one, and make sure everybody can have a doctor if they need one. Let's make sure we put it in there at the very least for our kids that, that bully is probably got bullied somewhere along the line, maybe at home, maybe by someone else in their life, another adult that maybe people don't even realize is bullying them. And then they turn around and they mimic, because that's what kids are. They're learning their behaviors from others around them.
That's
so
right. And
find out what's going on.
And you said something earlier about, because you're an exceptional family unit about the things you do. But I remember you said, you just mentioned just now therapy, right? I remember the functional times I did have in my family growing up. Therapy was at the dinner table. That was the therapy. You sat down. If I came home from football practice and my father like, okay, what happened today? What are you doing in school? Yada, yada, yada. You getting along with your friends? Because back then, everybody played at everybody's house. So every parent knew every single child. Knew when they was sad, knew when they was happy, knew, hey, pull them aside. You got to discipline them a little bit. See, we got away from that because, you know, when you get away from that and then you give our youth, it was almost like giving the kids, like when we grew up, our version of life was maybe, I don't know, maybe like a Chevy Impala. These kids, their version of life, we're giving them a 5-speed Maserati and throwing them right on the highway of life and saying, all right, figure shit out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And it's impossible. They can't do it. This is why today's show really is for parents out there and anybody, godparents, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, anybody. You know, just be mindful. We have got to pull this youth in. Gotta. Because right now, they have a sense of, why should I care about anything?
Give them a non-judgmental ear. Just be that person, even if you're just the next door neighbor and you're just out and you're just hanging around the neighborhood. And if a kid is struggling, can just go talk to that neighbor, to the aunt, the uncle, or whoever. It doesn't matter. But an adult who's just going to sit and listen and no judgment and just understand, you know, where they're coming from. Yeah. That's the first step to getting to step out and be able to work through those things. We have to know ourselves, though, what's healthy and what's not, because I think, you know, so this is the age when you have all these experts on YouTube for free. I have been availing myself of that. Go out there, make sure they are the licensed real thing. Make sure you're getting quality information from a person, a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist. But listen, there's a lot of them out there who are doing their own channels, and they're giving you what they're charging hundreds of dollars an hour for free, so that you can learn what's healthy, what's not. So you can identify in yourself what you were wrongfully taught growing up and what's the actual healthy way of being, and you can change that in yourself. Because I don't care how old you get, you can always grow, learn, and change.
Oh, constantly.
It's always.
This whole thing is about that. You know, when I forget that is when I fail. As long as I keep in mind that I'm part of this greater good and this energy cycle, this and that, I have happy days. The minute I start playing into the bullshit system that be trying to beat me down is when I get all screwed up. And I know it. And I'm mad at myself every freaking time I do it. I'm like, I failed again. This lesson, you know. And then I pull myself back out with the help of many people around me. And then I'm like, okay, let me try to make this work, because I know it ain't really my fault. It's not your fault. It's not Mark's fault. It's not an audience's fault. This is the cycle.
It is. But next time you do, I have a challenge for you, Zach. The next time you have one of those moments, first I want you to sit back, let that parasympathetic come down. So do something that gets that, and then sit back and just say, okay, what can I learn from this? Break it down, analyze it, and then say, all right, next time I can see there. That's okay. Go forward. And then leave all the bad feelings that you had about that moment behind you. Because I know you carry it with you. I know you do a lot. So I want you to learn how to just analyze that moment, step back from it. And what can I learn from this? And how is that going to make me a better person in my life, better going forward, what I learn and grow from this? And then cast off all that guilt and all that negativity that you have from it. So that's my challenge for you.
Hey, done and done.
And it's done and everything.
When we put out stuff, I have to follow. Mark, welcome to the show, bro.
No, I've been listening to y'all, following y'all and everything. And actually, I've got the last of the kids getting picked up, so you may hear the buzz of kids in the background and all along those lines. But I had a question for Jenn.
Can you move your screen down a little so I don't see that bright light, please? Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, my question for Jenn, because I've been hearing a lot of pushback from youth, from the adults that are pushing back on the adults, the kids that are speaking their truth, whether it's the truth about Ukraine, the truth about Palestine, the truth about Israel. So I was just wondering, what would your answer be to those folks that are trying to push back on the youth? Because in my mind, I thought you were supposed to go to college to have critical thinking and to learn things and to have differences of opinion. But there seems to be some pushback when people are having the quote unquote wrong opinion and all along those lines. But
Yeah.
I'm just wondering your thoughts around that, because there's been a lot of protests and there has been pushbacks on both sides, left and
Yeah.
right.
Right. Yeah. And it's the fact is, in all these conflicts, there is a lot of history and there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of baggage that comes with it. And it's usually just bad, period. It's like, it's just, this is a bad situation, period. So what do we have to do? We have to listen and understand. We go back to that, seek first to understand and then be understood. So if you're pushing it back against kids, if you're an adult, as adults, we have the ability, because as our brains mature, we're able to sit at a higher level, that 30,000 foot view, and we have more patience. It's been shown that our brains actually develop the ability for more patience as we get older, but that can be overridden, right? And there's a lot of social, like I said, push for being faster, impatience in our society. So that social construct is, I think, inhibiting what, as adults and elders, our natural way of being is to sit back and listen and impart wisdom in pieces. And a lot of times, I like to use the Socratic method, which is when somebody says something and you're like, well, why do you think that? Don't answer with something definitive. Answer with more questions. Get deeper. Force that person to go deeper. And if there is a flaw in their thinking, you'll discover it and you'll be able to point it out to them. And you give them a, well, what if? And give them a what if that allows them to see what they're thinking, the differences themselves. And it makes them start to be a little more skeptical too, right? But they got there by answering questions instead of being told. Because when somebody's trying to get their truth out, they don't want somebody just negating it and then just telling them and being, they're not being heard and understood. Use that Socratic method. Ask, delve deeper, sprinkle in your own wisdoms as you go, but keep delving deeper and letting that person reveal. And you'll get them to see more of your side when you're taking that journey with them, but you're allowing them to be heard. And I guess I think everybody can, that's a skill that if we all learned, we will arrive at better conclusions and less anger and hatred.
I got a question for both of you. That's awesome. I got a question for both of you. What do you guys think about, because you mentioned, doing away with homework and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on real homeschooling? What are your thoughts? Mm-hmm. I'll let Jen go first.
Yeah, I mean, homeschooling isn't what it used to be. And actually, when it first started, there was recognition from the public schools that some kids just needed that home environment. The school environment was too much for them, the wrong structure for them. And because the whole system can't change, the public schools were actually very supportive of homeschoolings very, very early on. They would provide a lot of times, resources. You could go in and ask the teachers, and they'd even give you a lesson plan for the whole year. They were very supportive. Then along the way, we did get, there was a group of people who I think infiltrated the homeschooling culture. And while they may not have been the majority, they were loud. And they brought, I think, some unhealthy, behaviors and ideologies into that space. And it gave homeschooling a bad name. I see homeschooling now is yet again different, and it's going back to being very community-based. And I see a lot of people, like, when you're homeschooling, it's not like I'm sitting there and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm trying to teach you. There's an awful lot of people who are homeschooling who were educators, or they're going out there and they're finding former educators who are just holding their own classes. And you sign up and you pay like $100 or whatever, or a few $100 for that semester or quarter or whatever have you. And that person who does have the credentials is teaching your kid. It's just you're able to pick and choose on your own. And there's also a lot more in the way of resources, easily attainable quality resources like Teachers Pay Teachers has a lot of quality resources. You can get a hold of quality resources yourself now. So, and then the even bigger picture is I'm seeing a lot of families in marginalized categories finding that that's the only way to get out of a system that was designed against them. So people of color and disabled, neurodivergent people, as a way of finally reattaining safe spaces and being able to teach appropriately and without that added oppression that still exists in a lot of our school systems today, and to break free from that cycle of waiting for them to actually acknowledge, that history and the way we properly need to get out of that and give all those kids the same true opportunity from the start. And so I'm all for it. I'm all for, I think we should, with school choice, start giving money to parents who are homeschooling. And I have no problem with saying, let's give those marginalized groups, because we can look at the numbers. You can look at the numbers. You can look, there's data. There's plenty of data that absolutely supports what marginalized groups are saying. This is not out of nowhere. This is solid. There's solid evidence for this. So use that evidence and keep gathering it to see the progress that you are or are not making, and go ahead and give money to those groups so they can make their own community schools, so they can homeschool or whatever they need to re-level that playing field and give those kids a genuine opportunity. So I'm a lefty, I'm a liberal, but I'm also for the, responsible school choice, right? I think we could make it responsible. There's a gentleman who used to be I can't remember if the Senate or the House in North Carolina, but his name is Marcus Brandon, and he spearheads a lot of that stuff. He really has some great things to say on the subject. He has his head around it, right? But there's people who misuse that system. Yeah, they're trying to tear down a whole system or trying to go backwards in history, and they want to use that system of school choice to do it. That exists too, but there's also people who want to use it responsibly to actually give a level playing field to others. And I think if we, if we design the solution with that intent, to bring people back to a level playing field, or to a level playing field for the first time.
After Mark answers this question, I'm gonna bring y'all even deeper down the rabbit hole. But go ahead, Mark, and then I'm gonna bring you deep. I'm gonna put y'all get ready. Put on your oxygen masks, because we going deeper. Go ahead,
I want to hear what Mark thinks about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I want him to go first, but then I'm gonna bring you all in on something else. Go ahead, Mark.
No, way back in the Ice Ages, I was actually homeschooled. I was actually homeschooled in the 6th grade, and actually am a proponent of that. Mom was
that explains
in a situation where she needed me to be homeschooled for a little bit, and that was way back in those Ice Ages and everything. So I was homeschooled for about a year. Was when we were moving from one town to another, and I was actually a protester. So I was feeling that there were some things going on in terms of mandatory tests. I think it was a mandatory ear test that I, as a youngster, was not a big fan of, and my parents kind of backed me up on that. And all along those lines, so they did homeschool me for about a year and a half, and then we moved to rural North Carolina. And I understand, and Jen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there are more regulations, because one of the things that was out there, the first was that there weren't enough regulations, but now there are regulatory boards that are even in the homeschool spaces that are making sure that things are done correctly. And to what you were saying, Jen, I had a friend of mine that is a college professor, and I think that some of those college professors are already doing kind of this technology or Zoom learning and everything were already prepared when COVID took place, because they had already been in that space for a number of years. So when that happened, they were the ones that were most easily prepared, because they had already done it, where some other folks had to scramble to learn new systems that they weren't prepared for, but they have gotten better at, and all along those lines. But I'm definitely in favor of homeschool. I've actually got a friend of mine, actually one of my mentors, that was in the charter school movement, Howard Fuller. He's actually how I got to Marquette University, but he was very much behind the charter schools, and charter schools are also important as well, and they can have different philosophies. There might be some that are very Christian based, there might be some that are very Afrocentric, there are some that are like the Chinese schools that are very Asian backed. So there are different philosophies that they can also be teaching. So sometimes you might want to have a school that is more along the lines of your own values and your own systems and all along those lines. So that is something that I'm seeing more of as well. So definitely don't have any problem with that, but I do think that we need to make sure that the public schools are prepared, because a number of our kids are going to public school as well. So while I definitely think that homeschool is important, you have to make sure that public schools are prepared.
I think we can make it work.
So do I.
Absolutely. I think we can make it work. We just have to design with intent.
Right. So do I. Now I want to hip y'all with something, right? Check this out. First of all, the number of teachers resigning and leaving traditional schools is astronomical. For the first time in our country, we have a teacher shortage. A teacher back in the day used to be a job where you could afford a home, you could raise your family on it. You were a teacher, you were prestigious, you were a standout in the community, your church, whatever. Now we devalue teachers in such a way to where they got to see people making $300 million to hit a baseball, and they got to buy their own supplies for teachers. All right. So I'm gonna put that out there, but it's a scientific fact. And Jen, you would know this: UV rays and UV lights beaming down on you for 6 to 7 to 8 hours a day in a confined environment is no good for the brain. So back in the day when we were tribal, we all taught in a tribal kind of thing. The first thing you ever learned at home, you were homeschooled, your ABCs. Teachers didn't teach you that. Your parents taught you that. Your parents taught you everything you needed to know to then send you out into the world to a building with another person to teach you shit. So this is why homeschooling to me was always in effect, because you be in homeschool when you come out the womb, you home. You know what I'm saying? So there, I don't know why people are so down on it. I hate it. And to me, the thing that I learned the most in a homeschool kind of environment, I was one of the top kids that could go back and write a paper on any field trip that I took. Because I was out of the classroom and I was learning world experience, Metropolitan Museum of Art, going here, going there. You can't really get that in a classroom. So you being an educator, you being, your own, designer, software owner, a woman company, you got all of that. You are so right. We need to tear the system down and rebuild the shit to save this new generation. Because here's what the world did for us. The universe says, listen, we're going to give you a chance to reboot, but you can't have one foot in and one foot out. If you're going to freaking reboot the whole damn thing, stop the violence, stop the wars, get to a level of love, and then use our technology that we constantly giving you to make things better. We don't need a building of 30 people sitting there all trying to learn the same shit from one person that's getting paid $28,000 a year that doesn't really give a shit. I saw a YouTube clip the other day. A girl took her shoe off and threw it at the teacher. Threw it. Didn't like what she was learning. And then they had to call security to get her out. This is like high school. Like, what the hell are we doing?
I think there's one of the problems is, and again, the conversation is out there in the public always gets boiled down to a couple simple points. And it is not what's representative of what's really happening. You've got one group of people who are just always like, they're not giving enough money. They're not getting enough money to the schools. More money, more money, more money. And the other side is saying, oh, you have plenty of money, but you're doing it all wrong. And the answer's somewhere in between. Yes, we actually do keep giving more money. So the people who are saying that we're cutting funding are looking at just one source. A lot of states cut funding, but the feds will often come in and give more money. Or the funding is going up. In every case, in fact, there's a big study that was done. I think it was in Illinois, but it was a very representative study, right? It shows the money going up. It's a chart. So how much money the school system is getting is going up. But then you look at the money being spent on teachers and students, and it's a flat line all the way through that. We're increasing the funding, but it's not going down to who needs it the most, the teachers and the students. If we reapportioned it, you could have smaller class sizes. You could have more of the on-site psychologists, real psychologists, because that's another thing we need to do is we got to stop allowing schools. Public schools are allowed to have someone and call them a psychologist when they are not a licensed psychologist. How is that person supposed to prove that they are properly trained and held to the legal requirements that a licensed psychologist in that state would be held to, that protects their clients, and with that privacy and that, that you need, a lot of those ethics, rules, and regulations. You can be called a school psychologist and you don't have a psychology degree, you don't have licensure in that state. And that's there's no other population we allow that to happen to except our children. Where we're letting less quality go to our children. What are we doing? So we need to get rid of that bloat in the administration, take that money, give it to the teachers and the kids, smaller class sizes, more focus on the EQ, the emotional quotient. We're too focused on the IQ part, the test scores on math and science. What about our scores on our emotional side, our psychological health and our emotional side? We should be scoring that and working on that with our kids too. In fact, more studies show that the emotional quotient is a better predictor of your success than your intellectual quotient is.
Yeah, in that same philosophy, I was just going to say that I have aunts that have passed on that were definitely in that teaching profession, and like you said, Zach, they definitely had a lot of commitment and a lot of respect from the communities that they were in. Some of them were even in places like New Jersey and Richmond, and definitely in Delaware and North Carolina, and some of them are still involved in that field, that are still living, those that are living and all in that space. But definitely it is a profession that has always meant a great deal to me, teachers and librarians and a number of others, because it's something that I've had a direct connection with and a direct tie to. And I think that it is a shame that they have not gotten a raise in all these various years, because there have been some places they haven't received a raise in decades and all along those lines. So it is a profession that deserves respect. But also, to your point, Jen, there are a number of other sources that I don't think we tap into enough, because how many people are we actually getting? And I know you're an engineer and all along those lines, a software engineer. Mm-hmm. How many times do we actually go to these corporations and actually get them to come into the schoolrooms? And I would like to see more of that, because I do know there are programs like that. But even here, we have a gentleman that's from Cisco, and he's teaching the kids about robotics and drones here at Haytide, but he's a Cisco engineer. And I'd like to see more of those kind of programs where we aren't just dependent on the teachers that have been trained in teaching, but also those that have practical skill in whatever their skill set is, and all along those lines. So that is something that we need to have more of, and all along that kind of space, because I would like to see more of that in society. And I do agree that even the kind of peripheral jobs, and I hate using that term, but like you're saying, the psychologist, and my mom was actually trained when she was a youngster in college as a guidance counselor, and I have a great deal of respect for guidance counselors, because a lot of times they're the ones that help kids figure out which direction they are going to go in life, and even give them multiple options and all along those lines. So it is very important to also respect the guidance counselors, but even those people that we don't think about as being teachers, but they are teachers. Because how many times do you go into a school and you hear the students talking to the janitor? The janitor sometimes has real world experience, and they have a great deal of respect for those people that are in that profession. I know that my grandmother was a cafeteria worker, and they get some real good conversations, not just about nutrition, but also about life from the cafeteria workers as well. So my grandma on my mom's side was a strong cafeteria worker and had that job for a number of years. I think at one point she was even the supervisor, if I remember correctly. So we need to give respect to across the board, and all of those folks need to get much better pay and along those lines. So that's something that I think we need to see in general. And as y'all all know, I'm in the arts, and what we pay our teachers is ridiculous. So we need to give some support for our arts and all along those lines.
And kudos to your family, Mark. And that's dope, because what both of you said so eloquently, and we're hanging out with Jenn Vanderputten and Mr. Mark Lee, is vital to us moving forward. The whole purpose of this particular episode on Funk from the Front Seat, 9 on the Grind TV, every Saturday at 12, was to bring light to something that I've been talking to so many people about over the past summer, all summer long. People are like, yo, man, this is what I'm dealing with, or this is what I'm dealing with, or this is how I'm feeling, or this is what my kids are going through. And I wonder this, and I'm worried about that, and I'm moving, and I'm this, and I'm that, and I'm getting divorced, and I'm getting, trying to get in a relationship. All of these things is going on, right? And we're still trying to maintain our daily lives. Just keep in mind, like Jen said, don't beat up on yourself, because this is part of this process that we're in. And I'm telling you, if you guys don't believe me, you go look it up. 5,125-year cycle. That is real as you know what. And we're actual living proof of it. But what I wanted to ask you both, we have to address the elephant in the room. Okay. The past 3, 4, 5, 6 months, we've been slowly edging into the Middle East conflict, putting our toe in. Then we put our foot in the water. Now it's full-fledged, all gas, no brake. Jen, what do you think about it?
It's always been said if we're going to have another world war, it's going to start in the Middle East, and I can't find any good argument against that. That's why peace there is so important and why we have to focus on that. There was something happened recently, and I can't remember which university it was at, but I really liked the response to it. So there was a group of people who doxed a group of students who were speaking out against the Israeli response. So they doxed the students. I hope I'm getting this straight. But the Jewish community, the organization on campus, was very came out strongly against those who doxed, even though those who were doxed were speaking, you would think, against them, but they realized it's not against them, it's against the violence, it's against that problem. And so that Jewish community said, we are against those who doxed those students. They were speaking out, they were speaking their mind, but they were doing it anonymously because they didn't feel safe doing it with their names attached to it, because that's how explosive this is. They recognized that you can hate the violence coming from all players, and you can want peace for all. You can even pick a side. I'm on this side or I'm on that side, and you can still condemn violence. There's nothing wrong with that. I think we need to stop thinking that once we pick a side, we have to be all in, that we can't be critical of our own side that we've picked, that we're on. And I'm seeing voices this time around. This is the first time I've seen with this level of aggression where people who have picked a side, like I'm on the Israel side or I'm on the side of Palestinians, where I've seen people speaking against any violence or hatred against those you would normally perceive as their enemy. So that, again, they're saying the problem is the situation. Most people are just trying to live their lives, and there are groups of people that escalate that, conflict to violence, and they are not representative of the groups they're coming from or identifying with. So again, that, let's not paint a broad brush on anybody. Let's realize that most of us want peace. Most of us want people to be able to live their lives and not have their homes destroyed and their, and kids killed, because it's happening everywhere there in Israel, Gaza, in Palestine. There's violence and innocent people dying everywhere there, and there's got to be a better way. I think there's more people realizing that there's got to be a better way, but it's really hard when you have all that history and the emotional baggage and the trauma passed down from generation to generation. So hard to break free. I'm not an expert in how do you do that. To me, that looks like it's up above the clouds, and I don't know how it's done. But I think there are people who know how to do that. I would like to see their voices lifted up instead of the people who are just shouting, that other side is evil. The other side is evil. I would like to see the voices lifted up who say, we see a way out of this into lasting peace and dignity for all people involved. Because, the recent action of the Palestinians are told to get out. There's no way for them to get out. When even the UN is saying, and other organizations who normally remain somewhat neutral are really saying, if you want people to get out, you've got to give them a way to get out. You're just locking them in a cage that's getting bullets shot in it. So, these are just everyday people. These are just people trying to get them and their kids out and live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I'm actually going to take a different bit of a twist on this and everything, because I do think that, unfortunately, there is the notion of war is business, and unfortunately, it is a war industry, and all along those lines. So there are a number of factors, including even in our own government, that are encouraging some of the war machine to go on, because that is how they make their money, and all along those lines. And I hate to put it that way, but that's just the truth of what happens in the nature of colonialism and the nature of some of the capitalistic things that go on in the world and everything. And even when people are doing the positive things that you are like talking about, Jen, while Forbes and some other magazines covered it, how much did you hear and how much respect was given to the Muslim women that actually organized an interfaith? And yes, I did say interfaith, though it's Muslim, Christians, and Jews that came together, but you didn't hear that much coverage. It was like a footnote that was in the coverage, but they had organized a kind of a multi-faith peace vigil that was outside the White House, and this was like only 2 or 3 days ago, but we did not hear that much coverage around that because that doesn't play into the narrative, unfortunately. And there are some big interests, and I do not forgive Hamas for what they did. I think that was a very dastardly act, but let's be very clear. There are some forces in Israel that are of a more reactionary kind of forces that have had some history as well. So there have been some things in Israel that has done some terrorist acts as well, because they are our ally. We don't talk as much about them as we do the other side, because there is some of that goes on as well. So we need to be fair and not just paint one side as the sole demon, because there is definitely some forces even within the Israeli government. I'm not 100% sure about their current leadership, because I think that he's had some history as well in terms of his and all in that space. So he's had some negative history that is not being painted because we want to see them as a strategic ally. And I get that from a standpoint of the military and our alliances and all along those lines. But, you know, we have to be very real with what's going on. I was, and I know this is a different topic, but it's still in that same light of how do we address what's going on, because even in Australia, there was a major vote that just happened today where the Aborigines, which are the First Nation people, wanted to get more of a voice in their community. And that was actually voted down by the majority of the Australian citizens and all along those lines. And all they wanted to do was have a greater voice heard in the legislature. So it seems to me that that would be something that would be favorable, but there was a side of their conservative politics that actually went against that because they were feeling threatened by it and all along those lines. So,
so let me ask you both this, and that's very well said. So let me ask you both this. In lieu of our conversation about elevating our mindset about love, how do we get conflicted sides to stop the violence and understand a violent act is in our minds violent because it hurts somebody, it's violent, but it's the same energy that we use to say do something kind, because energy doesn't know the difference. It only knows what we do with it, right? So how do we get people to watch this show more and say, listen, they're talking about love. Can we elevate stones and crystals? Can we elevate and stop having sides and just start having one? Because history doesn't dictate that.
No, I've got a radical idea, and you might like this idea because I think it's something that we can all get behind. We can even include things that we all enjoy. This is definitely funk from the front seat, so I think the funk music community can get behind this. I would even argue that my blues community can get behind it. I would argue that my jazz community can get behind it, and I just came up with this idea right now. So maybe me and you got to get together along with Diego and figure out how we even get our Latin brothers and our Arab brothers and our African brothers and everybody else involved in this. But why could we not organize on a grassroots level a live aid type kind of concert, but it would be peace aid and all along those lines and everything along that line? Because you remember that live aid definitely generated a lot of conversation around the conversation of hunger, and it brought people from different diverse backgrounds into this conversation and all along those lines. So like I said, you know, I sometimes dream too big, or maybe I'm dreaming too big, but why couldn't we have starting right here in North Carolina, getting that idea of a live aid type concert?
That's a great idea. If you can find, because I've been trying to do that since I've been here. But if you can find the people, I'll definitely perform at it. You know, I've been trying to get people here to understand we have a voice bigger than we think, but I can't. It
doesn't have to be singular. I mean,
I
if you
can't get
remember
people on the
live
same
aid,
page, bro. But I try.
But it doesn't have to be singular. If you remember Live Aid, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, as I recall Live Aid, and that was a number of years ago, and there were some Live Aid sequels. They were all over the country. They were all over the world, because as I recall, that was the early days of Zoom, and there were people literally performing from different spaces. So we've got technology like Zoom that still I do. We've got technology like StreamYard. It's literally just a matter of picking a set date, and the set date, everybody saying we're going to do it on this set date.
That's dope. I wanted to get Jenn's opinion though on what I said before about trying to get everybody in the love mode.
Something that Mark said has sparked the answer I have for this, and it's the stuff you don't know that gives you the real picture of what's going on. And the stuff you don't know reveals the solution that those who are, keeping that information from us don't want us to realize, because it may end their reign of power, wealth, or whatever else that they're trying to keep in place by withholding that information. So, like I said before, elevating the voices who are speaking differently. We elevate the voices who say, we know how to solve this. Especially, like you said, the Muslim women and Jewish women. It's like often it is women too, because the women know, like, inside the home and out both. They know they are the ones holding up society all the time, and they know what has to be done. There's studies too that show the better off women are in a community, the better off the whole community is. Not the same for men, because women make sure that the whole community gets taken care of when the women are given resources, the women are given power and voice. And so I love what you said, Mark, about how Muslim women and Jewish women coming together and saying, we know what to do. We know how to go forward with this. Give them the voice, give them the resources, give them the power, and let them talk about the information that the rest of us aren't giving. We've got to move the camera from where we keep putting the camera over to the people who need to be heard about this.
I always said women are the most powerful creatures on the planet, but it's not even close. I said that my whole life, because you guys need to be running things. You really do. We got robbed of our first woman president. She should have been president. Whether we liked or agreed or disagreed or whatever, she had the capability to run the country a lot better. And if she doubles back, I hope she doubles back and gives it another shot. It can't hurt, because a woman's voice needs to be heard. I'm sick of these old pasty men that just been there for 80, 90 years. How in the hell are they going to relate to me? You came through in 1940, and now it's 2023. And you mean to tell me you know what's fucking best for the country? How's that possible? We are so sheep-like. This is why I'm a rebel. I soon fully expect to go out of my car to blow up and I'm in it, or for them to take me out, Men in Black, whoever. I don't really care, because I'm 65. So do what you want to me. But y'all are completely fucking up the system up there in D.C. And I'm going to say it just like it is. It needs to be said.
There's a guy that's running as an independent. He's actually just pulled out. And I'm not talking about RFK in this case. I'm actually talking about a gentleman named Aaron Day, who I think is actually very much into the crypto space. And I'm not saying that I agree with everything that he is about, because he has some conservative views as well, but he is one of those younger voices, because I think he ran as a libertarian in New Hampshire and did run as a Republican for president, and he just recently came out and said that he is going to be running as an independent. So there is that independent voice, and who knows, maybe this is the first time we actually get a independent into the, because he was actually, like I said, I won't say he's in his 30s or 40s, but he's definitely a younger gentleman.
Well, we need more youthful people. Every time I meet someone that's a little bit younger, and I'm trying to tell them, listen, I'm trying to make the place better for you, but you're going to be the ones that make the change. All change doesn't always have to come from somebody middle-aged or older. Change can come from the youth as well. We need to value their opinion. And if you're young and you're watching this show, know that we value what you said, because we know how important you are. You know what I mean? It's been amazing, man. We've blasted through an hour and 45 minutes, so I'm loving each and every bit of it. I got one final thing while y'all are both here. Going forward in this gentrified time we're living in, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, down south here, people are homeless. I mean, not just like a few people, lots of people can't afford to pay their rent. Lots of people can't afford a place to stay, lost a job, whatever. What can we say to those people to give them hope because we don't have the resources. But what can we say? What words can come out of our mouth that I call symbols can we say to give them hope?
Well, first off, and like
Let Jen go first, Mark.
Jen, go first.
Gosh, I was hoping Mark would go first because I got to think about that.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Because that's a tough question. How do you give hope to someone that's like, when in reality, the closer you are to just subsistence living, the less you can think higher, those higher thoughts, the more, because you're just trying to survive, right? So we have to acknowledge that, and we have to acknowledge the reality of the widening gap, the wealth gap, and the money that keeps collecting at the top, and the guts it's going to take to grab it up from the top and get it back down to the bottom, where it belongs. Because the health of the middle class equals the health of the nation financially. But every time you try to have that conversation through every era, it has been, it's hitting your head against the wall. And I don't know what to say to someone other than like, I see you, like you are seen and you matter, and whatever we can do, we're trying, but ask them. Maybe we'll use my Socratic method. What could happen today for you? What can happen for you and everyone in your situation right now that could just make that little difference? Just a little, not solve the whole thing. What's that first step? Yeah, and then we try to make that happen. But you gotta ask the people who are living it. They're the ones who know the solution better than anyone else.
I suggest everybody ride down I-40 and look to the right before you get to Cary Boulevard, and then a couple of exits up right after the airport to the right where those woods are. You see all those blue tarps in there? Those are now tent cities right here in North Carolina off I-40. Tent cities, not just like one or two people trying to survive. These are because I know, because I went there.
But you don't even look at I-40, and I know that you are oftentimes running up and down I-40, but as you know, and I know, there are some that are literally right in the heart of one of the most liberal cities here in Durham. There are literally many tent cities that are around the corner near Duke University, and Duke University is a prominent university, and there are some tent cities even in the areas near us. There are tent cities. I'm over at Hayti today, and I know that there are some tent cities because I see some of the clothes that are left out and some of the areas, including some overpass and underpass that are really near the downtown area. And I think I've mentioned it on this show as well as other shows, but I always resonated. It's kind of what Jen was just talking about with a artwork piece that my dad did years ago that still resonates. And if you go to his website, you can see it, but it's called Thoughts and Prayers. And it's definitely been a prominent piece here in this city and in this state, because one of the notions that he had was that people don't really, thoughts and prayers are important. Don't get me wrong. Spirituality and that connection to the Most High is most important in everything. But when you are in a need, you don't always want to hear thoughts and prayers. You want to hear action, and you want to get some solutions to what you are going through immediately, which is why he created the piece Thoughts and Prayers, because he felt that a lot of people were doing thoughts and prayers, and I'll just put some, I hope I'm not putting words too much in my dad's mouth, but as lip service. They were basically giving it lip, not actually doing the action behind it, because sometimes people need the actual action to go with it and not just some lip service to it, because you can give thoughts and prayers all day long and all along that line. And the other things I was going to mention, and I think you have talked about it, I've had several friends of mine that are in the kind of the space of being light warriors and energy healers and all along those lines. And one of the things that I'm hearing that is positive is that, yes, these are some dark times for a lot of us, whether it is around housing. And first off, the resources are there. Let's be very clear. How many empty buildings, how many new buildings do you see that are going up that aren't filled, and how many classes that aren't filled? So the resources are there to actually house the people that we are saying are unhoused. It's a matter of just having the wherewithal and the capability and the will. And it's very important to have the will to do it, because I guarantee you there is enough empty spaces just here in Durham and Raleigh to provide those housing for those people that we're talking about. But those empty spaces have to make themselves upfitted. They have to make some changes, and they have to have that very important word, will, in order to do it. But the other thing that I've heard positively, and this is my positive note, is I've heard several people that are in that light warrior space, in that energy space, that have said that, yes, these might be dark times, but we are on the brink of something that is going to be very positive and very light, wonderful, and all along those spaces. So I've heard that message from several of my living angels and everything, and they've told me that, yeah, you're friends and you may be going through some dark times, but this is one of those shifts in the universe that is going to be a positive shift in the universe if we can get through it, and all along those lines. So everybody that I'm hearing is saying that in the next few years, it will be a more positive change, and all along those lines. So I know that there's a lot of folks that are having difficult times, but I'm hearing from my fellow light warriors that this is kind of that storm before the rainbow comes, and all along those lines. So I'm hoping that they are right, and that is what I am hearing. I'm hearing y'all's prior conversation before I jumped in. I think that Jenn and Christy Key Rollins, and even I saw that and I've talked to her all the time because she comes here and she's in their chat conversation. Normia, that Normia has also had those conversations as well, that it is very much a new time and that we are on the brink of some very positive energy and all along those lines. So I just don't know if you're hearing the same thing, Jenn, and if you're hearing the same thing, Zach, but that is something that I am hearing from a number of folks.
I totally do. And shout out to my guy, Kevin Harrington. He's going to be our guest next week.
Kevin.
So, Kev, I love you, bro.
Oh,
and you know
awesome.
how spiritual. Yeah, man, you know. And what's up, Dr. Brookenstein? Shout out, thank you. Appreciate you guys always watching. Today's show was about being a real, and we're going to kind of get into a little bit more of that next week. So y'all stay tuned. We're going to have Kevin Harrington on KHX Experiment. He's got his merchandise out, so a plug for my guy. But Mark, you said something very important when you said living angels. See, here's my thing, and this is just my opinion again. See, I know that there's a creator. I know that for a fact. Now, whether people believe it or not, or want to believe it or not, I leave that up to them. That's not for me to throw my beliefs on someone, right? But I do know also that a lot of the things we do here in this day and time with this energy in this space, we have to be aware that it's for the greater good. And I think that's when we get lost. Like this show right now is for the greater good. Yes, we're all individuals on it, but we're actually touching other people by the comments, and then they will then go touch other people. So that's my thing this year going forward. This is our 4th year of this show. I've been blessed to have so many beautiful living angels. So thank you for that, Mark. I never knew what my guests were. Now I know.
Now that's my new terminology, living angels, because I definitely, as you know, I believe in ancestors. So there are those ancestral angels as well. But I know that there are people that are living angels as well, and all in that space. Now, I can't let you off the hook altogether and everything. So I do have to tease you about one little thing, since it is a fun show and we're having good fun and all of those lines. So earlier in the show, there are different things that go on in the internet world as well. So yes, there is .com, there's .org, and yes, there is .co. So that is an actual website.
That's on me, bro. I fessed up. That's on me, because I was texting more. I was like, damn it, isn't that supposed to be .com? Isn't that supposed to be .com?
I wish. Sure? I mean, I wanted to get the .com originally, but they used to be using it for like Vanderputten family tree around the world. They were trying to get I married into Vanderputten. That's my husband's last name. So I took his last name. His father's from Holland. So his father is Dutch, Nederlander, as they say, Netherlands. And, but around the world, they were trying to get the genealogy. The domain, I guess that dropped away, but somebody's parked on the domain, and they want a lot of money for it. And I was like, nah, I'll just get .co.
Yo,
that's how it goes.
I'm like, you're the CEO, so it's your company. So that's why I was like, oh,
that's
she's
right.
going like that. Not mine. My company. CEO, me.
I'm the chief operator. I run this thing, but yeah, there's been a lot of them out there. There's .edu. There's a lot of these dot things there. Time you turn around, there's a dot something along the line. So there are a bunch of them. Those are new dots that are out there. But yeah, I just had to teach you about that, because we're like, wait a minute, he's been on my case this whole time about it's a .com mark, and I'm like, no, I double checked because I looked at the website. And
you did.
Right. I was in it. I was on it. Don't think I was sleeping, Jen. I was not. I can't. It was bothering me.
He probably cut it and pasted it right from my email. So I'm like,
did.
I was gonna say, if he got it wrong, it really would have been me that got it wrong.
Yeah, all I know is as the host, I was on it. I wasn't sleeping on it because I was like, I hope she don't think that I don't see that. We're getting a lot of comms today. The chat is on fire. Dr. Brooker Sack, thank you. Awesome. Kevin, of course, thank you, man. You'll be on next week. George DeFunca Vinci. I know we had James Jones earlier watching. A lot of people watch. We appreciate all you guys because basically we're all the same. Funk from the front seat. Everybody that's on this show or that watches this show, we are all the same mindset. Yeah, we all have little differences of opinions, but basically, you want to get up in the morning, you want to do whatever worship, ritual, spiritual thing you do, right? Get your mind right, go into the world, do your thing, and then come back and then kind of just chill out. It shouldn't be this hard. So I'm telling you, it only feels hard because we're at the beginning of this new age. So don't fret, as they say. Like Mark said, like Jen said, like people on the thread said, it will be okay. Just keep believing in what you believe in. Like me, I know my personal relationship with the Creator. You know, I know my personal relationship with God. I know what mine is. So I encourage all of you out there watching, find yours because that's what it's going to take. Because as Chrissy Key Rollins always says, this is the planet where chaos happens. A lot of this stuff, no matter what book you look at, it's there. It tells us. Prophecies tell us. Revelations tell us. Nostradamus tells us. All of these people were gifted somehow. They didn't make this stuff up. This is happening now. We're in it. We see it. Society has changed on us. We have to embrace it, stop pushing against it, and make sure we stay in the light.
I got to teach you about one other thing, and then I'm going to leave it alone because I know we're winding down on this show, but it's been a fun show and all along those lines. But I did see one of those futurists that had an interesting prediction. I'd love to hear what both you and Jen have to think about this, but there is a futurist that came out recently, and he said that speaking of holding on, that if we hold on for 7 years, that we can actually have immortality. So apparently he has a good track record because he's had like about 90% success rate. So he's saying that by 2030, we will be in a state of immortality and all along those lines. And I don't know that everybody wants to live for all their life or live for human immortality, but there is a gentleman that has put that out there and has been very adamant about it. I think he came out like last week, and he's a very well-known futurist guy named Ray Kurzweil. But yeah, apparently he's got good track record. I think he's got like a 95 or 93% success rate because he predicted the advent of the cell phone, the advent of the internet, and advent of a number of the other things that are out here in this particular date and time. But I do know that he said, hey, if you can just make it to 2030, you can live for as long as you want to live, because that would be immortality and everything. But I know a lot of people don't know that I want to be on this planet all that long. So, Jen, do you want immortality? And what do you think about this gentleman's idea? Because he said it by 2030. That's only 7 years away.
It's wild, but other wild predictions have come true too. So I always try to keep an open mind that anything is possible, because every time you think you've seen it all, you see something new that blows your mind. I do know that there has been scientific research, a lot of it on aging and how it works, because there are creatures who will live until something kills them. They will not die of aging. So that exists. Immortality exists in creatures on this planet. We are not one of them. We carry the seeds of our own aging and demise within us. And what you said is, I think, the more poignant fact. If we achieve that capability, that it is a choice that people are able to make for themselves, that it is not thrust upon them. That should absolutely be your choice.
Yeah, I know we got to wind it down. I'm gonna give you the last word, but I got to give a shout out to one of my good friends who's not feeling well, Joan. So I know you watching. I love you. We want you to get better. Just stick to, your rehab. You had a little fall there, but, you made out of stone. You're the strongest person on the planet. So, Joan, I hope you feel better. And I'm sending you, Funk from the Front Seat, all our positive vibes, all our love. And my audience, we're going to send all of that wave to you. And you're going to be back on your feet in time to do some pickleball. so you feel better, Joe. Know that we love you, man. Mark, it's been a blast as always. I'm going to give Jen the last word, man, and we get ready to get out of here and continue this beautiful day.
Yeah. What I don't know what he wants me to say, but I'll recap. I'll go bracket this right back at the beginning. If you're treading water, if that's what you need to do it. Hang in there, and that's what Zach just said. A lot of us just have to hang in there right now. Forgive yourself for that. You don't have to be sprinting right now. You can just be just keeping your head above water right now. That's okay. Give yourself that grace, and don't let that hope die.
Y'all heard it here first. Funk from the front seat. We're going to end with that. Don't let that hope die. You guys been a great audience. We're changing our format a little bit. You'll see some different backgrounds until I move. So you'll just hang in there because you know the funk from the front seat. You know how we always roll. Next week, our special guest is going to be Kevin Harrington, and he's going to be bringing the heat. Nappy Funk Army's back in the studio starting tomorrow. So I'm going to be working on some new stuff for you. Don't forget, Flag on the Funk on all your major platforms. Came out a month ago. It's getting really, really nice responses and support. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for following us and, keeping us alive. I'm going to end today with something special for my peeps up in Ohio, Bootsy and Patty and all the people around the world. You know that I love you. And Brenda, you feel better up there. Everybody in New York, New Jersey, Tokyo, Angyo, y'all know how I feel. I love everybody around the world. Please stay tuned. Watch us, Funk from the Front Seat, every Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 on The Grind TV. Y'all have a beautiful day. Jen, you've been an awesome guest. Thank you a million times over. I can't wait to have you come back because we got to finish going down this rabbit hole. We're going to go all the way to the bottom.
That's right.
To the bottom. That's
where
we're
going
to
go.
Before
you
we
get
are
back
going
to the top.
We are going to get to Nirvana. We're going to talk to God. We're going to find heaven. We're going to get all of that stuff rolled into one because we really are about love on this planet. That's what it's about. That's what Jesus was trying to teach everybody. He taught outside. He was the first homeschooler, technically. Homeschooling people. You know what I'm saying? So he was like, yo, light up, whatever. Y'all come over here, and I'm going to teach you some stuff that you're going to need to know. You know what I'm saying? As I went down, I'm sure of it. It's like people just need to pay attention. It's not that hard to live on this planet. It's all about love, y'all. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.
It's however you feel, but you just have to fit it between that space, that little space that you got, which is one. One. And then you would try to fit your different notes, but you felt in between it, like, and that's the funk. And you can change that. And that's the funk. And you can change that.
True essence of the funk is the power of the one. It's the power of the one. This funk